Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Dao, Chapter 1173, Chapter E. The battlefield had already turned into a writhing nightmare. Those pitch-black insects, tiny as grains of sand yet deadly as sharpened blades, descended in endless waves. Their fangs gleamed like miniature daggers, and worse still, the venom dripping from their mouths carried a sinister power. It was not merely poison, it was torment itself. The moment it entered the flesh, it spread like wildfire through the bloodstream, numbing the body, dulling the senses, and binding the limbs in invisible chains. Even Ling Han, whose physique was far beyond ordinary cultivators, felt the creeping stiffness take hold. His movements slowed. His body grew heavy. And deep within, even his nerves began to falter under the strange paralysis. The flames that once roared around him weakened instantly, their brilliance dimming as if suffocated by the creeping toxin. Sensing weakness, the swarm surged once more. The black snakes, previously stunned into stillness, regained their ferocity. They twisted and lunged again, a living tide of darkness crashing toward him. But Ling Han's eyes flickered with cold determination. He circulated the indestructible heaven scroll. In that instant, the aura of heaven and earth gathered around him like an unseen storm. A golden rhythm pulsed through his meridians, washing over his flesh, his blood, his very nerves. The paralysis shattered. The poison was driven out. And with a loud, unrestrained laugh, Ling Han reignited his flames. Fire burst forth once more, wild, untamed, and blazing brighter than before. With a sharp motion, he drew the divine demon sword, its blade humming as if eager for slaughter. Let's see. Whose power reigns supreme. Boom! The sword erupted with boundless flames, its fire merging with his own into a blazing inferno that swallowed the air itself. Against these insects, flame was the perfect nemesis. Merciless. Absolute. A buzzing tremor filled the air. Ling Han unleashed the 7-kill subduing soul technique again. His spiritual attack surged outward like a silent blade, slicing through the swarm. In the next moment, countless insects dropped from the sky, their bodies lifeless. Without hesitation, Ling Han swept them all into the Black Tower. His gaze flickered with thought. These creatures, perhaps they could one day become a hidden trump card. Meanwhile, his wounds began to close at a visible rate. The indestructible heaven scroll worked ceaselessly, restoring flesh and blood, mending every tear. Though a few stray insects managed to pierce through his defenses and bite into him, their numbers were too few to matter. After all, these creatures were terrifying, only when they came in overwhelming swarms. Thousands, tens of thousands, even millions. In such numbers, they could strip a man down to bones in an instant. But alone, or in small groups, they were nothing. Master, little Asura truly admires you. The Asura Demon Emperor's voice echoed with undisguised awe. He himself had possessed a puppet at the Sun Moon tier, yet even he had been forced into retreat by this swarm. And yet here was Ling Han, standing firm, even gaining the upper hand. The contrast was undeniable. Of course, this did not mean Ling Han surpassed Sun Moon tier elites in raw strength. Rather, his body, his techniques, his terrifying recovery ability, these made him uniquely suited to counter these insects. Above, the swarm still formed a suffocating black cloud, blotting out the sky. Yet even within that darkness, there was a limit. These insects did not stray beyond a certain invisible boundary, as if bound by an unseen rule. From afar, Ling Han himself had disappeared beneath the black mass. Only flashes of flame flickered within the darkness, like sparks in a storm, proof that the battle still raged on. But slowly. The black cloud began to thin. One wave after another fell, burned, slain, or sealed away into the Black Tower. At Ling Han's feet, piles of insect corpses began to form. Time passed. And finally, the swarm broke. The remaining insects retreated, flying back toward the small hill as if called by some silent command. Silence fell. The battlefield stilled. Ling Han stood alone. His gaze shifted toward the strange flower. It swayed gently, its presence eerie and profound. But Ling Han did not act rashly. He sealed his breath, closed every pore across his body, guarded his divine sense with the indestructible heaven scroll. Golden light radiated faintly from his form, as if he had become a being beyond mortal influence. Only then did he step forward. Yet even as he approached, he did not pluck the flower. Instead, he began to dig. Carefully, meticulously, he unearthed the entire plant, roots and all. Only after securing it completely did he place it into the Black Tower, replanting it within a suitable environment. When everything was done, he stepped out once more. Let's go. He glanced briefly at the small hill but chose not to take it. He would leave those remaining insects a slim chance to survive. And so the group, 3 people and 1 puppet, continued forward. They did not return to the banks of the Yellow Spring. There was no need. After countless years of exploration, one truth had been carved into the bones of every cultivator. Never approach the Yellow Spring. Never touch its waters. Why was it called the Yellow Spring? Not merely for its appearance. It was death itself, a river that devoured life. Even the slightest contact meant certain death, regardless of one's cultivation or health. And worse, the soul would not escape. It would be dragged into the current, condemned to drift within that cursed river for eternity. There had once been those who attempted to collect its water. They did not even reach the river before becoming empty shells, bodies without souls. Thus, the Yellow Spring was not a resource. It was a forbidden zone, a landmark, and nothing more. As they walked, Ling Han communicated with Notionless Saint within the Black Tower. He described the strange flower and the terrifying insects. After a moment of thought, Notionless Saint spoke. Could that be the misty soul-capturing flower? His tone carried rare uncertainty. It is a peculiar plant, he continued slowly. It offers no benefit to humans, yet its effects are horrifying. At its peak, it can even influence the minds of eternal river-tier elites. Ling Han nodded. This one barely affects me. He paused, then added, Does that mean it has yet to mature? Most likely. The implications were clear. If nurtured properly, this flower could become a devastating weapon. Ling Han could release its influence, then retreat safely into the Black Tower, leaving enemies to fall into chaos and illusion. However, this particular specimen was still immature. Its power was too weak. Even if used, it would be ineffective against Sun-Moon tier elites, or at the very least, it would take an unreasonably long time to influence them. Ling Han then shifted the topic. And those insects? Notionless Saint's response came with a hint of shock. Saintly scarabs. Ling Han raised a brow. Saintly? Those flesh-eating monsters? The light orb that was Notionless Saint flickered faintly, as if recalling ancient memories. They are born from the corpses of saints. Ling Han's eyes narrowed. From the bodies of saints? Not all saints, Notionless Saint clarified. It depends on the Dao they cultivated. Some give rise to saintly firebugs, others to saintly iceworms. He paused. And they are not always so small. I have seen one, tens of thousands of meters long. Its presence alone shook the heavens. Even I would not dare confront it. Ling Han felt a chill. Tens of thousands of meters? Could such a creature even be called an insect? Then, could this place be the resting ground of a saint? He asked. Impossible. The answer came instantly. If it were truly a saint's abode, how could an eternal river-tier cultivator manipulate its formations? He continued. Unless the saint allowed it. But more likely, the owner of this place discovered these scarabs elsewhere and cultivated them over time. And if these had been first-generation scarabs... His voice deepened. They would have slaughtered even eternal river-tier elites. There is no way you could have taken them. Ling Han nodded. So these were not the original generation. Still, now that he possessed them, he too could cultivate such creatures. But this power came with danger. If he lost control, the consequences would be catastrophic. After all, even in death, saints could still shake the world. Yet power, as always, walked hand in hand with risk. Used correctly, these scarabs could become a terrifying weapon. As night fell, if such a term could even apply in this sunless world, they stopped to rest. There were no suns, no moons, no stars here. Only shifting light and shadow marked the passage of time. Clearly, even eternal river-tier elites lacked the power to seize celestial bodies and embed them within this mystery realm. They had half a year. After that, the restrictions of this realm would tighten once more, sealing all paths. Even Venerable Trinity would be unable to reopen the entrance. Thus, they had to return before time ran out. When the appointed moment came, Venerable Trinity would open a passage to retrieve all who remained alive. But if one missed it, there would be no second chance. The ever-tightening restrictions would crush them day by day, and no one, not a single soul, had ever survived to see the next century. The dawn broke softly across the mysterious land, its pale light spilling over the rugged terrain like a thin veil of mist. Yet within this quiet morning, an undercurrent of unease lingered. Hu Feiyun frowned as she spoke, her voice tinged with confusion. Huh? Why did Sister Shui suddenly disappear last night? At those words, Shui Yanyu, who had just lifted her bowl, choked violently, coughing as if the food had turned against her. A faint flush crept across her cheeks as her sharp gaze shot toward Ling Han, filled with unmistakable fury. How could she not be angry? In the stillness of the night, he had summoned her, dragged her into matters far too shameful to speak aloud beneath the light of day. Ling Han, however, merely smiled, his expression calm and utterly unbothered. With a light chuckle, he waved his hand dismissively. Children shouldn't pry into such matters. Focus on your breakfast. Hu Feiyun's cheeks puffed up like an angry squirrel. Again! They were treating her like a child. First her elder sister, and now Ling Han as well. The injustice burned within her heart, and she could only grind her teeth in silent protest. Yet the morning meal ended all the same. Soon after, the trio resumed their journey deeper into the heart of this strange and perilous realm. This land was no ordinary place. Beyond the eerie existence of creatures like the misty soul-capturing flower and the sinister saintly scarabs, it was also a treasury of heaven and earth, a place where godly medicines and rare treasures grew in abundance. Indeed, it was precisely because of this that the misty soul-capturing flower had drawn so many cultivators here. To most, it was not a monster, but a priceless godly medicine. As they advanced, their path was marked by signs of others who had come before them. Several times, they discovered patches where godly medicines had once grown. But each time, they arrived too late. The plants had already been harvested. Some of the gatherers had been crude and impatient, ripping the medicines from the earth and destroying even their roots in the process, leaving nothing behind but barren soil. Others, however, had acted with foresight and restraint, carefully preserving the roots so that the plants might regrow over decades, centuries, or even longer. Ling Han observed all this without hesitation. Where others saw remnants, he saw opportunity. Without a word, he knelt and dug up every intact root he encountered, storing them within the Black Tower. Within that divine space, the growth and potency of these godly medicines would be elevated to their absolute peak. As more and more roots disappeared into his possession, the smile on his face deepened. This harvest was beyond satisfactory. If fortune favored him like this every day, then this entire expedition would already be worth the risk. Yet the heavens were never so generous. There were days when they would encounter 7 or 8 godly medicines in succession, and other days when they would find nothing at all. Thus, 7 days passed in the blink of an eye like drifting clouds carried by the wind. Then, ding, 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 the sharp, metallic echoes of clashing weapons suddenly pierced the stillness of the land. From afar, dazzling bursts of divine light erupted into the sky, illuminating the horizon like streaks of lightning. A fierce battle was underway. Hu Feiyun's eyes immediately lit up with excitement. Let's go take a look. Shu Yanyu frowned slightly, her tone measured and cautious. It's better not to meddle in other people's affairs. But Hu Feiyun had already dashed forward, her figure darting like a lively swallow, her curiosity far outweighing her caution. 7 days without conflict had left her restless. The Ninth King, who thrived on action and excitement, could no longer suppress her urge. Ling Han and Shui Yanyu exchanged a glance. Then, without a word, they followed. Still, neither of them felt fear. After all, this mystery realm barred entry to Sun Moon tier elites. Within these boundaries, Ling Han's strength placed him near the peak, almost invincible. Their safety was not in question. Soon, a field of scattered rocks came into view, jagged stones strewn across the land like the remnants of a forgotten war. Beyond it, the battlefield revealed itself. 2 groups stood locked in confrontation. One side had only 7 people, the other, 25. The larger force had formed a tight encirclement, trapping the smaller group like prey caught in a hunter's net. Hand over the 9-layer divine lotus, one of the encircling men shouted coldly, and we may spare your lives. A voice rang out, clear, fierce, and brimming with disdain. It came from a red-haired woman among the trapped group. Her appearance was striking, almost wild. She wore a shoulderless armor that exposed her smooth, jade-like arms and even revealed a glimpse of her full, alluring chest. Her lower armor barely reached halfway down her thighs, leaving her long, slender legs completely uncovered. Her skin bore a healthy wheat tone, radiating vitality and strength, like a huntress of the wild. Her entire presence was that of a fierce, untamed leopard. With a cold snort, she continued, "You haven't attacked because you're afraid we'll destroy the 9-layer Divine Lotus. But the moment we hand it over, you'll slaughter us without hesitation." Her words were sharp and true. The encircling group burst into laughter. "Ha! There's no need to worry, Leader Meng," one of them called out mockingly. "The others might die, but we'll make sure you live." Another added with a lewd grin, "I've long heard of Leader Meng's beauty. If we don't have a taste, wouldn't that be a waste?" Ha ha! Ha ha ha! Their laughter turned foul, dripping with malice and depravity. In this vast mystery realm, their actions would go unseen, and even if someone did stumble upon them, they could simply silence them forever. Hu Feiyun's face darkened with fury. How detestable! With a sharp motion, she drew her sword and charged forward, shouting, "Evil villains, face my blade!" Her sudden charge caused the encircling group to pause momentarily. Then, they laughed even harder. "A little beauty just delivered herself to us. Perfect timing. With only Leader Meng, we'd have to wait forever. But now, the line just got shorter. Wait, look over there." Their gazes shifted and landed upon Shui Yanyu. In that instant, their breathing grew heavy. Their eyes burned with greed. She was even more stunning than the other two, her beauty ethereal, her allure capable of stealing one's very soul. To them, even sacrificing 100 years of lifespan would be worth a single moment with her. Ow! They howled like beasts, their restraint shattered. Yet before they could act, a figure appeared. Ling Han. He stepped forward calmly, his presence steady as a mountain, and spoke in an even tone, "Leave now, and I may spare your lives." His voice was neither loud nor threatening, yet it carried an unshakable authority. Ling Han was not someone who relished slaughter. He knew nothing of the full story between these two groups. Thus, he offered them a path to retreat. But a man stepped forward from the encircling group. He was around 30, his build stout and heavy. His robe hung open, exposing a bulging belly. His face was thick with flesh, and in his hand he gripped a massive saber that radiated killing intent. "Brat," he sneered, "you've got quite the arrogance, don't you?" Behind Ling Han, the red-haired beauty called out urgently, "Thank you for your help, handsome stranger. But these people are dangerous. Take this chance and leave." Yet another voice from the enemy side cut in coldly, "You've already interfered. Do you think you can leave now?" Ling Han's lips curled into a faint smile. "Weaklings," he said calmly, "and yet you act so smug." The words struck like a slap. The big-bellied man's eyes flashed with cold light. "You're courting death." Seizing the moment, he leapt forward, his saber blazing with divine radiance. Patterns of power intertwined in the air as a chilling aura surged toward Ling Han like a freezing storm. But, pooh! A flash of brilliance split the air. The divine demon sword appeared. With a single, effortless strike, the saber shattered into fragments, and the sword did not stop. It continued forward, cleaving through the man's body in one clean motion. His corpse split in two, blood sprayed into the air, intestines spilled across the ground. Silence. Everyone froze. Their eyes widened in horror, their breaths caught in their throats. One strike. Just one strike, and he had been killed. Wang. The divine demon sword hovered beside Ling Han, its blade spotless, not a trace of blood clinging to it. Yet the aura it emitted was terrifying. With each refinement, its power had grown more profound. Forged from devouring metal, a substance destined to evolve into divine metal, it far surpassed ordinary godly weapons. The encircling group no longer dared to treat Ling Han lightly. Fear crept into their hearts. One of them stepped forward cautiously, his voice solemn. "May we know who you are, sir?" These men were not weak. Through countless years of cultivation, each had reached the peak of the mountain river tier. They had gathered 25 strong, believing themselves invincible within this realm. But now, that confidence had shattered. Before them stood a man whose strength defied comprehension. A single strike had overturned everything they believed, and for the first time, they realized that true prodigies, truly monstrous existences, did walk this world.